Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a video review. And for this review, I'm going to be taking a look at Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, a brand new 2D Ninja Gaiden game for the Nintendo Switch or Switch 1. This is being played actually on the Switch 2. It is worth pointing out the game's also available on the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, and PC via Steam. And if you're interested in any gameplay footage, I'll have a link down in the description down below, or you can click on the card that will appear up on this video, assuming you're watching this either on YouTube and Patreon, as well as the timestamps will also be there if there are certain parts of the video you wish to skip to. And for parents out there, it is worth pointing out that Ninja Gaiden Ragebound is rated T for teens, ages 13 and up, by the ESRB rating systems. Now, back during the NES days and everything, there were definitely hard and difficult games out there back then. Some may have been just because the game was bad or broken, but there were certainly challenging games out there indeed. Ninja Gaiden was definitely one of those games, to be exact. I remember playing it before, and it was not an easy game to play. Some of it may have been the controls at the time, or the difficulty spike, but whatever the case, it was certainly a challenging game. For some folks out there, that was good. Others certainly had issues about it, though. And of course, in 2002, if I believe that is the date and everything, although I could be off by that, we got a first ever 3D Ninja Gaiden game under the name Ninja Gaiden, which was considered a difficult game at the time, though, until it got a sort of a remake or remaster with Ninja Gaiden Sigma back in 2007 that would be released on the PS3. This would later follow up with other 3D entries like Ninja Gaiden 2, Ninja Gaiden 2 Stigma, Ninja Gaiden 3, and Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor Edge. Some people had some mixed feelings about Ninja Gaiden 3, although Razor Edge supposedly, from what I understand, is a better game, though that is open for debate though. And of course the recent release of Ninja Gaiden 4 that just came out, that's available on multiple systems at this time though. But as far as another 2D entries into the Ninja Gaiden series compared to the 3D entries that I mentioned though, we never really got one after the NES days, outside of 1, 2, and 3 and all. Well, it was sort of interesting to hear how apparently it seems that there was a new 2D Ninja Gaiden games in the work, developed by supposedly the Game Kitchen that has done different, difficult 2D games out there before in the past, published by the same studio that handled the Streets of Rage 4 and all. So when I first heard about this and saw the trailer, I decided to give the game a go as well and try it out. And after spending some time with the game and everything like that, I will say that I did come away pleased with this title indeed. I won't say it's perfect, but it certainly is definitely an enjoyable 2D Ninja Gaiden game, and I certainly wouldn't be against the idea if they do another one at some point down the road and all. So I'm going to break it down into the pros and the cons, and we'll start off first with the pros. And I would say on the pro side, I do like the look of the game and everything. It basically looks like sort of like something that would be like on the Super Nintendo or even Sega Genesis. It has sort of like a 16-bit look to it though. It is sort of a 2D game and everything, and it's actually kind of neat and all, and I think the visuals of the game looks nice. Again, it looks like a Super Nintendo game to even like something like you would see on the PlayStation, like with Castlevania Symphony of the Night. So visually speaking, I think the game looks good. I do think some of the enemy designs look really neat as well. So I gotta give props to the developers in terms of the look of the game. The next thing you want to point out is the platforming, and this is sort of the classical 2D platforming in a way. While there is certainly a difficult spike in the game, I will say that it's not as difficult as the old NES Ninja Gaiden though. You do basically control, at the beginning you do control two different ninjas though. One that basically plays like Ryu and all, the traditional approach, and a brand new one I think called Korma, if I'm saying her name correctly or not, that throws basically a certain form of like, ninja stars or something. She's more like what would be in a way kind of like a 2D shooter to a certain degree, to some extent. Eventually these two characters, like powers would combine, and you basically sort of alternate between the two, as you basically will have to use them for certain situations, including taking out like certain enemies and all. And some of the enemies in the game will have like a certain like an orb or something, and if you attack them with that right power up or right, and so forth, you can obtain contain sort of like a powerful mode that you can use to basically take out some of like the tougher enemies out there though. So it does come in handy indeed. Plus there are some hidden secrets here and there in terms of like ranging from breakable walls that can lead to certain secrets and everything, such as hidden like golden skeletons or golden bugs or skeletons and all, which you will need these golden bugs in general in terms of buying different power-ups and all. Plus there's also checkpoints in the game, so that certainly helps indeed. Plus on top of that, in terms of fighting certain enemies, you also have to kind of time your jump a little bit when jumping on some of the enemies though, because you will be using them to bounce off to jump from like one platform to another in certain areas in the game. So there is certainly some tough spots, but I will say it is definitely enjoyable, and I like that classic 2D platform approach that they did with this game. And last but not least, as far as the Switch version goes though, the game now has the option to run at 60 frames per second. Now, when Ninja Gaiden Ragebound was released, when it first came out, the Switch 1 version at the time did not have a 60 frames per second compared to the other versions though. And I tried it at first with it basically at 30 frames per second, and while it certainly wasn't bad in any way, I will admit it was a little bit disappointed that there wasn't a 60 frames per second compared to the other version. Well, they did an update for the game, and they now added that 60 frames per second, and you kind of can spot the difference and everything. For some folks like it having it running at 60 frames per second because it helps to a certain degree, but in either case, I'm glad that option is now available though. Obviously you could turn it on and off, but nevertheless, I certainly think it's great that now they have an option to now have this game run at 60 frames per second and all. As far as the cons go, I do want to mention, as I mentioned before, is the difficulty spike in the game though. And believe me, the game is not a cakewalk or anything like that. While I will say the game controls better than, say, the original NES Ninja Gaiden, although some people still prefer that game, and that's fine, that's your preference and taste and everything like that, there are still some times when taking on, there are some difficult spikes in the game, indeed, ranging from taking on some of the very difficult boss battles to some of the enemies, to even sort of timing your jump. That can lead to some, let's just say, frustrated moments. Although it's worth pointing out that there is an assist mode in the game, so you can turn that on if you have some issues with the difficulty though. Again, some folks are okay with this difficulty, to be exact though. It's sort of a similar view I have with the Souls-like games though. They're not for everybody though, but there are some folks out there who aren't bothered by this difficulty part, so it is worth pointing out, this is a difficult game. Some folks are going to be okay with it, some folks may not. That's going to come down to your preference and taste. And last but not least, as far as playing this game on the Switch 2, I really didn't spot any major Switch enhancements as far as I am aware of, to be exact though. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't have any problem playing this game on the Switch 2 and all. After all, this Nintendo Switch 2 is a system that is also backwards compatible and play a majority of the Switch 1 games and everything. But I will say that I did not really spot, at least as I said, as far as I'm aware of, didn't really spot any kind of major enhancements for Ninja Gaiden Rage Blade for those who are playing it on the Switch 2 and all. Perhaps maybe the developers will develop a Switch 2 edition, as we've seen some developers have done that and all. That is always a possibility, but for now, based on what I've seen so far, don't expect any major graphical enhancements or improvements for those who have this game and are playing it on the Switch 2. Again, at least as far as I'm aware of and all. Overall, I would say I came away pleased with Ninja Gaiden Ragebound. It is a tough but still enjoyable game nevertheless though, and it does deliver that old school Ninja Gaiden feel to it though, for those who prefer the 2D Ninja Gaiden games. And like I said, I wouldn't be against another entry if that ever happens and all. At its best though, the retro look to the game looks really great. It looks like something if Ninja Gaiden was a 16-bit game or even a 32-bit game on like the PlayStation, similar to, Castlevania Symphony of the Night was to some extent. The platforming is good, so is the combat in the game. Though, again, I don't think it's as frustrated as the NES Ninja Gaiden game, but there are some tough moments in the game nevertheless though. And I am also happy to see that the Switch version now runs at 60 frames per second. I think that's great. At its worst though, the difficulty spike might turn some folks away. Again, this comes down to your preference and taste, but there are some folks who might not like the difficulty, but as I said before, there is an assist mode in the game. And I will say, and as I mentioned, I didn't see any Switch 2 enhancements or anything as far as I'm aware of. But in either case though, I still came away enjoying Ninja Gaiden Ragebound and all. And I would be open to the idea of a sequel or another 2D Ninja Gaiden game to sit along with, the 3D Ninja Gaiden games if another one should happen and everything like that. I will say it was sort of an interesting year last year for Ninja Gaiden, as we had 3 Ninja Gaiden games, Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, Ragebound, and of course Ninja Gaiden 4. Hopefully this is the start of seeing more entries of the Ninja Gaiden series down the road and all. And as much as I would love to see, as much as I enjoy Ninja Gaiden 4, and as much as I enjoy the 3D entries, and I still do, I would like to see more of the 2D entries at some point. Sort of balance between the two. Kind of like how Nintendo does with Mario, how we have both a 3D entry and a 2D entry. I'm hoping we'll see something like that with Ninja Gaiden series going forward and all. So here's the hoping that this means that Koei Tecmo or whoever they license the game out to, we see more Ninja Gaiden games down the road, and hopefully this also means maybe more, like 2D entries and all. And I do hope that Koei Tecmo opens the door to maybe either licensing the game or developing some of the old IPs that they have that have remained dormant that I do think deserve another shot, whether it's Rygar or Winback. I think those titles should get another shot if that ever comes to fruition and all. But in either case though, if you're a fan of 2D games and you were a fan maybe of the NES Ninja Gaiden games back then, I would say you'll probably more than likely enjoy Ninja Gaiden Ragebound and all. Okay, this concludes my review of Ninja Gaiden Ragebound for the Nintendo Switch. As I said before, being played on Switch 2. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about Ninja Gaiden Ragebound? Did you pick up the game by any chance? And if so, which system did you pick it up indeed? Do you like the art style to the game, that retro look to it that they sort of aim for this game to a certain degree? Did you enjoy the gameplay or the platforming though? Do you think, did the difficulty spike turn you off, or you weren't bothered by the difficult spike at all? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you do like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You can do it through PayPal me, Patreon, or Steam Lab. Links will be in the description of this video, assuming, as I said before, assuming you watch this either on YouTube or Patreon. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye!